Verzeo. Learn here, lead anywhere. Subscribe to our Verzeo channel and tap the bell icon to receive all notifications. Download the Verzeo app and get free content access.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me? Just send a message in the chat. Okay, thank you. Do let me know when we can start.
Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for everybody to join in, and then we'll begin.
Hi, Sakshi. How are you?
Hello, sir. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too.
So good evening, everybody. I am Sakshi Rastogi, and I'm your host for today's webinar. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Soorya Annadurai. Mr. Annadurai is a software development engineer at Microsoft Bangalore. Also, he was a student research fellow at an Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore from May 2017 to July 2017. Furthermore, he completed his graduation from Manipal Institute of Technology. And today we have summoned here to collect some of his great learnings on how we can crack the interviews at some of the top MNCs like Microsoft Corporation. I wish to call upon Mr. Annadurai to throw some light on the same and impact our lives with his wonderful learnings. So please welcome Mr. Soorya. The floor is all yours now, sir.
Hey, all great. Hi everyone. That's a fantastic introduction. A lot of flattering comments, but thank you nonetheless. I'm excited to be here. Hello everyone. Before I continue, just want to make sure if everyone can hear me.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Awesome. So, hi, my name is Soorya, and as Sakshi very gracefully introduced me, I am working in Microsoft as a software engineer. My role is termed as software development engineer 2. I graduated from Manipal 3 years ago in 2018, and I've been here ever since, and it's been a good journey from college all the way to where I am right now. So in this session, please do feel free to interrupt me. And please don't call me sir. I'm just a few years older than all of you. My name is Soorya. Please call me by my name. Apart from that, I will be walking you through my. Wait, first, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, sir, I'll just check.
Okay, I think it's fine now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's very well visible.
Awesome. All right, so let's begin. So this session, I will be walking you through my Microsoft journey, and as a part of that, what it takes to build a good CV as an entry-level graduate. This webinar is primarily about how you can prepare for a technical interview, understanding an interviewer's mindset. And what I mean by an interviewer's mindset is what is an interviewer looking for? And more importantly, what is he or she not looking for? To understand what challenges you as an engineer, the interviewee, need to overcome specifically. What questions do you need to tackle in order to accurately impress the interviewer so he or she can give you the job you're desiring? And more importantly, what factors do not matter so you don't waste your time preparing or elaborating on those aspects. Also, a very common question which I had and a lot of my peers had in my college days, how important are your grades and your projects in your CV? The answer to that is a little multifaceted, which I'll come to a little later. And consequently, how can you craft your own CV that will cater to the company that you're interviewing for? In my case, it was Microsoft, but as you can expect, different companies will look for different things. So you need to craft your CV specifically to what you are interviewing for. And finally, I'll be rounding out this entire session with my own experiences, my own learnings, some of the mistakes I made, some of the things I did right, and how all of you can learn from my experiences. Again, feel free to interrupt me. I'm not we're going to look at the chat screen in the course of this session because I only have one screen. So please feel free to unmute yourself and interrupt me if you have any questions along the way. I want to also explicitly talk about what this session is not. I won't be talking about how you can prepare for non-technical or college interviews. Non-technical interviews could be something that's not a software engineer role. For example, this is not going to be tailored for a management interview. And also it's not going to be tailored for example, MBA interviews. If you're applying for an MBA in foreign universities, these tips will not directly apply to those MBA colleges. Some of the commonly asked questions in Microsoft interviews are not going to be covered as part of this session, but there are dozens of resources. I will be happy to share them later on. And also solutions to specific interview questions. I'm not going to walk through individual technical questions that involve data structures or algorithms, etc. Again, I'm happy to take that on a separate note, maybe as a post webinar question, but as part of this session, I won't be covering specific technical questions. And finally, I'll explicitly not be covering how you, a person A or person B, can tailor your CV to a given company X or company Y. These are generalized tips, which I have learned from both my seniors, my elders, family members, and as an employee at Microsoft. I will be giving you my experience on CV building, but I will not be personalizing CVs explicitly for one or two or three people. So that's it. This is a gist of what I will be covering and what I will not. I'll start off with my my interview experience at Microsoft, as you all might expect. But before that, I do want to know, what is the audience, the experience level of our audience? Are we talking to third-year students or first-year students? Could I have a show of hands? I'm trying to see where Zoom is, but all right, I can't find it. But yeah, could anyone tell me about what the age category of our audience is today? All right, second year, or maybe our host at Verzeo could throw some light on what the age category of our audience is.
Yes, sir. There are people from all sorts of backgrounds, first year, third year, graduates.
Okay. One moment, sorry. Okay, yeah. So all of us are in first to third year. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay. So in that case, if you're in your third year, you may have already gone through the internship interview procedures. Typically, as I was a computer science engineer, and when I was in my third year beginning, I had to go through the interviews for internships in several companies. Believe it or not, I didn't fare very well. I couldn't clear any of the first rounds, and the first rounds for all technical companies were online rounds. Online in the sense we had to sit in front of a computer. They'd ask 3 different questions, and having said that, they'd put a clock above the screen and ask you to solve those questions in a fixed amount of time. You have to make sure your code passes a lot of test cases, and if it does, you get points. If it doesn't, you don't get those points. And finally, people who only get a certain number of threshold points go to the next interview round. For whatever reason, I didn't get past that first online round, implying I didn't get enough points, implying my code wasn't good enough. Now, this was a big shock to my self-esteem. And why do I say this? In my history, I had done a lot of mini projects from first semester all the way to sixth semester, which was the interview season at the time. No, not even sixth, first semester to fifth semester. The number of projects I had done, they were more than average, and my grades were fine. My The reputation I had with my professors were good, and I had letters of recommendation. All that was fine. So internally, before the interview season, I had a presumption that, hey, you know what, I can handle this. I know how to develop projects. I know how to create small applications. I got this, right? What more does a Microsoft interview really look for from me? At the time, I didn't take opinions of seniors who had already gone through the procedure. And in hindsight, I really, really wish I had. Because the easiest way to get a job as a full-time employee, and that's an abbreviation you'll hear quite often, FTE, full-time employee. The best and easiest way to become an FTE at a large multinational company like Microsoft is by getting an internship and converting that into a full-time job. It is extremely hard in comparison to apply for a full-time job on your first go. Simply because as a company, they are more willing to hire interns at half your salary. And if you are an intern, meaning you are already working on what the company is looking for, the company specific jobs, the company specific projects, it becomes so much more easier to impress your peers and your manager and the seniors around you. And they will in turn give you a good recommendation, which will persuade the company to hire you, convert you into a full-time employee. That's the best and easiest way to get a job at a large MNC like Microsoft. Become an intern, work your heart off, and convert that. That's the easiest and most straightforward way. So if you're preparing for your internship interviews, remember this is your best shot. But again, because of my overconfidence, call it what you will, I thought I got this. For namesake, I did prepare from this website called geeksforgeeks.com. It's a pretty useful resource to study for technical interviews. But I prepared for about a week just so that I'm familiar with the types of questions they asked. And yeah, I could answer them. I wasn't really taking it too seriously, or I wasn't panicking about it. Surprise, surprise, I didn't clear the first round of any of those companies. The companies that came at my time were Microsoft, Cisco, Amazon, SanDisk, and Dell. There were many other companies that did come for other branches. Again, for the sake of this webinar, I'm restricting them to the CSC specific companies, computer science specific companies. And I was astonished for all the projects I had done, for all the work I had demonstrated to my professors, for all the grades I had achieved, for all the certificates I had. Really, I couldn't clear the first round. And that was a huge shock psychologically. Now, having said all that, the most important thing is to learn from the failures that we've gone through. In my case, just don't underestimate the value of preparation. Preparing for your interviews it's one of the most underrated things, because it's very easy to get into the mentality of, I've done X, I've done Y, therefore I should be good at Z. Don't make that mistake. Always prepare. Go through the grind, repeat what you need to repeat. It's absolutely worth it at the end of the day. Given that we're talking about technical interviews, write on paper. It's a little counterintuitive, but that's the best way to get fluent. What do I mean by that? When you're writing code on Notepad or Visual C++ or Visual Studio or Code Blocks or whichever your IDE of choice, you're absolutely right to say that you can't compile code that's written on paper. You need to be in an IDE, or that environment could be online, it could be on your machine, that doesn't matter. But if you're writing it on paper, that's the best way to get fluent. And what do I mean by fluent? When you're actually giving your interview, unless you're giving a virtual interview, which is a whole different ballgame, I'll come to that later. If you're giving a face-to-face interview, the best way to get the interviewer impressed is by showing that you can write code just like you would speak English. If you can write your code without scratches, if you can write your code in a way that it makes sense as you write it, you're not trying to fit in different jumbled pieces and make a few edits and scratches in hindsight, make corrections to your code. Because again, you need to remember, as the interviewer, you are reading code that is totally unfamiliar to you. You're reading code from someone who is applying for a job. You're not sitting in their mind. Therefore, that person, the interviewee, in this case, you and I, is obviously less experienced than the interviewer and therefore more prone to make mistakes. So the code you and I write will not be the code that the interviewer is looking for. So having said that, they know this. They know we're not going to write perfect code. Therefore, they will be giving us hints and tips along the way. Again, I'll come to that a little bit later, exactly what goes on during the interview. But why do I recommend writing on paper? Just for the fluency. If you can show that you can speak code, right? And that's a quote you might hear from time to time in interview-related seminars from other people. If you can speak code, you're already communicating with the interviewer. Put in the time to practice this, practice from different resources, practice from different websites, practice different questions. Never underestimate the value of diversity. Don't just practice from one specific topic. For example, in a technical computer science related interview, you'd be looking at different subjects like data structures, algorithms, complexities. All of these different subjects equally matter. Don't practice one just because you like it. And conversely, don't practice one just because that's your hard spot. Give a balanced amount of practice to all of those topics. Again, if you have questions on what those topics specifically are, I'm happy to follow up with you after the session. I'm not getting into the specifics of what topics are important and what are not. This is just to give you an idea of what is important when you prepare. Now, all of this is going to happen during the last 2 to 3 months of your interview preparation. But there is so much more that goes on to build your profile. And what I mean when I say building a profile, it is all the other work you've done in your college, before college also, the grades you've received, the extracurricular projects you've done, which clubs you're a part of. Do you play sports for a hobby? Are you a musician? Do you sing? Can you do something extraordinary? Can you hold a leadership role? And for example, if you're in the management committee of a club, all of these things matter. Find the right way to pull in these different extracurricular opportunities during the course of your college. Don't leave your placement preparation for just the last 2 months or last 3 months of your interview season. That is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, because the interviewer knows everyone is going to be racing at the last stretch for these jobs, because as these are large multinational companies, all students want those highly paid, highly coveted jobs. The difference in your profile comes only when you put in the time over years. That is the biggest difference you as an individual can make. Don't neglect the power of these little small mini initiatives. And having said that, because you're doing all these mini initiatives, make sure you get those some document that says you have done a certain initiative and you're recognized for it and it is valued because of so and so reasons. I'll show you a document that I had to compose. Just one moment. Yeah. So yes, I had to compose this document after I got placed in Microsoft. But this is just to give you an idea of what documents I collected over time. Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of each individual entry, but I'll go from the bottom of this table of contents. I was part of the IACSE club. That's the Computer Science Club of Manipal. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. If you're from other colleges, IACSE is one of those large clubs in our college, which caters to computer science related enthusiasts. That could involve interview preparation, that could involve college-wide events, hackathons, getting sponsorships from other companies to host their own mini placement sessions. All of that, anything which is computer science and student-driven, almost certainly came from IECSE. And this is one of the largest clubs in Manipal. So everything that I did, I made sure I had a certificate to back it up. I'll just go through some of them. just to give you an idea of how important it is to get these documents. Right? So this was some of the work that I had done. I made sure I had these certificates because sometimes the sheer volume of work you've done, even if they're not individually massive, this can make a huge difference in the eyes of the interviewer. It shows that you've taken the time to make sure you have verifiable proof that you've done something and you've done a lot of it. That goes a long way. Whenever you do projects, make sure you get a recommendation letter. In Manipal, it looks like this. If you're from other colleges, please do ask your professors for a letter recommendation for the project you've done. It is not a foreign thing. Teachers know exactly what you're asking for. It's just not many students ask for it explicitly. This can go a long way. Do make sure you get it because it'll help you well after you get placed as well. So yeah, that's the importance of the proofs and acknowledgements and letters of recommendation. And also, if you don't get placed during your internships interview season, don't be discouraged. Because as you know, there are so many students and only a few seats available for internships, right? Not all companies, not all students are going to get placed for internships. That's a simple fact of reality. Don't be discouraged if you don't make it. Find out what alternates you have. In my case, I looked a lot online, and there was something called the Student Research Fellowship Program. That's a nationwide, India-wide initiative for hiring students as research fellows in large reputed universities. For example, I interned in the Indian Institute of Science only from this SRFP, Student Research Fellowship Program. So like this, there are many initiatives online, some government hosted, some private hosted. Do take the time to research and figure out which of these internship opportunities makes the most sense for you. Having said that, it goes back to the point where don't leave it for the last minute. Hunting for internships at the last minute is almost impossible to do. It takes time to apply. You will almost certainly be rejected by a dozen of these companies simply because fact of the reality is everyone is applying for them. So start early and you'll almost certainly get at least one or two from you to choose from. That goes a long way in building your profile for your final interview, having assumed that you've not made the interview for the internship, like myself. Having some internship will enhance your profile when you actually go for the FTE interview. That's the full-time employee interview. And that was my next step. The first company that came to Manipal in my 4th year for the FTE interview was Microsoft. And this time I made sure I didn't make those mistakes again. I assumed I wasn't getting to any company at all. I didn't want to make the same mistake that, yeah, you know what, I've done so many projects, I've done so many initiatives, I got a lot of letters of recommendation, I can handle this. Absolutely not. Start from ground zero. Presume you're not getting anywhere. That fear will actually take you a long way. And listen, don't panic. Don't freak out. Don't panic. Don't lose your self-confidence. Know what you've done, but at the same time, make sure you are not overconfident. I can't stress enough on the role of that psychological mindset. When I started preparing, I didn't want to touch 10 or 20 different resources. Each individual that I had contacted from my senior base who had already gotten placed into companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Dell and et cetera, each of them have their own set of interview resources that they would recommend so very strongly. Again, I didn't want to touch each of them because I simply didn't have the time. I only had about 3 months to prepare because during my college semesters, I was focused on building my profile and of research papers and a patent. And I'll come to my specific experience a little later at the end of the session. But hey, is someone having a question? Okay, I think someone's mic is on. It's all right. So I didn't want to take all the resources that everyone was using. I just wanted some, and I wanted to do them thoroughly. I wanted to make sure that I had covered everything there was to be done from just a few resources. In a nutshell, I prefer depth over breadth. So I just use these three resources. Geeks for Geeks, that's a website. Cracking the Coding Interview by Gail Lackman, which is a textbook, and a website called Interviewbit. The first two were my go-to Bible resources. I practiced almost all the questions on Geeks for Geeks and Cracking the Coding Interview. This Geeks for Geeks was a website which had wiki explanations of different questions. What are the different approaches you can use to tackle different types of problems? It also had a small little integrated development environment where you could code into that website and try out different questions and run it against different test cases, etc. But this book, Cracking the Coding Interview, I would heavily, absolutely recommend this. If you're serious about getting into a technical company, absolutely make the investment into getting this book for yourself, and practice writing these answers on paper. This is a textbook, which is even better. I wouldn't recommend finding the PDF online. I know that's available too, but I would recommend getting the book, getting an empty notepad and a pen and just writing down the solutions. It goes a long way in building your fluency, like we discussed before. And finally, just to round it all off, I used this website called Interviewbit. This had a clock on the top. It's basically exactly like the first round of a lot of interview rounds. Like I said, the online round for these large-scale multinational companies is them asking you 2 or 3 questions on a website. You have a clock of about 30 minutes that's counting down, which is adding pressure in an already pressure cooker situation. I wanted that clock on the top just to add that pressure so I could get used to it. Interviewbit was a good resource for that. These were the only resources I used. I know a lot of others will swear by other resources, and absolutely different things work for different people, but this was my sweet spot. This worked for me. Would heavily recommend them to anyone who wants to check them out. I also documented my interview experience. I will. This is a text document that I'm not going to read through entirely. But I documented it so that if anyone else is interested, I'm very happy to share this text document with anyone who wants to see and also read and understand the technical questions that were asked and the back and forth banter, how they were psychologically testing me. This has everything about my experience. I'm happy to share this afterwards if anyone is interested. But what I want to take away from this document are just a few points. First of all, the first round of a Microsoft interview was online. There's a platform called CoCubes, again, another website explicitly meant for interviewers to host online questions. There were 3 questions. Each question was worth a different set of points. In my case, 2 points, 3 points, and 5 points. You need to code your solutions onto those onto that website where you have a little text editor, you press submit, and a service will compile your code for you, run it against different test cases. You know some of those test cases, you don't know all of them. For example, if the question is write a program that adds 2 numbers, you have to input 2 numbers and see out, display a third sum. You'll see some test cases, right? For example, input is 1, 2, and the output should be 3. Input should be 100, 1, and the output should be 101. There are some invisible test cases as well. For example, the input is -1 and 0. The sum should be -1. The invisible test cases are where you will almost certainly get trapped. So do not make the mistake of assuming that the test cases that are shown on the website are all the test cases. You need to make sure your code is robust enough and strong enough to handle those edge cases as well. This is one of the biggest learnings from my internship interview experience. Make sure you know the exactly what the question. I'm sorry. Okay, I think someone's mic is on. That's all right. Okay. Oh, I didn't see the chat. Please send the slides and all. Absolutely will do. Please share, will do. Share interview experience. Yep, I will do so. I'll share the slide deck and my text document. All right. So yeah. So these were the this was the format of the first the first round. 3 questions, different values, invisible test cases plus visible test cases. Make sure your code is robust enough to handle the invisible test cases as well. So basically invent your own test cases, think of edge cases, and make sure your code does exactly what it's supposed to do, even with unexpected input. In my Microsoft interview, about 1,000 plus people wrote the first there was a qualification round as far. No, that was for the intern. Okay, there were about 390 candidates who wrote the first round online. 42 people qualified from that set. And out of these 42 people, 12 of them were chosen for direct interviews. Now, what does that sentence mean? Basically, if you do your online questions so well, so perfectly thorough, if your answers are perfect, you don't even need to go to the second round. You directly jump to the third round of the interview procedure. In my case, I think I made a couple of mistakes here and there, but it was good enough to be in the top 42. So I went to the second round. They call this a group fly round, where you had to give answer 3 questions to solve in 45 minutes. So even here, there was a catch. They actually tested us a bit psychologically too. And how did they do that? They actually gave us 45 minutes and 2 questions in the beginning. And they said, use your time wisely. Here are the 2 questions you need to solve. They wrote the questions on a big chart paper, and then they said, go for it. You have to write your answers on paper and hand in your paper at the end of the 45 minutes. At the 20-minute mark, they said, hey, by the way, here's the third question. Figure out how you want to solve this, if you want to solve it, but there's a third question now. The time is not increased. You have to solve all of this in the same 45 minutes. So that's a little bit of a psychological bombshell. You need to figure out that, okay, my split of about 20 minutes and 25 minutes is no longer going to work. I need to speed up the way I'm doing on the spot. So that was a bit of a shock in the middle of an already stressful interview. From that set of 30 people, that's 42 minus 12, about 17 people qualified for the next round, which is the third round, the technical round. Again, because this is a college environment, and interviewers were flown in from different cities across the country into our town of Manipal. So all of them had to finish up the interview procedure by the next day. So this interview happened around, happened around 11:45 p.m. And for me, it went all the way till about 1 in the morning. Oh, Subhash, hi, I see you raised your hand. Cracking a coding interview is in Java. Is there Python available? Okay. Oh, that's a great question. All right. Cracking coding interview is, at least the book I had was available in C++, but Java, I'm sure will work too. Is it available in Python? Now, that's a great question, because not all companies accept all languages. I can tell you for a fact that the common languages that are accepted in all technical companies are C++ and Java, and most of the time C. But again, if you're a C developer, you're almost certainly going to be a C++ developer. So again, I'll reduce my set to C++ and Java. Having said that, not all companies do accept Python. I know Microsoft does. I believe Amazon does not. Again, those rules may have changed in recent times, but when I was interviewing, Amazon did not accept Python. Cisco did not accept Python, and SanDisk did not accept Python. So I'm sorry, I digressed from Harshavardhan's question of whether it's available in Python. No, I don't think so. This book specifically is not there in Python. But having said that, please do prepare for either a C++ or Java specific technical round, because these are the 2 languages that are common across all your technical companies. I think Mr. Subhash raised his hand. If you have a question, please do speak. Otherwise, I'll carry on. All right. So yeah, the second round actually started for the 17 plus 12 people well in the afternoon around 3 or 4 p.m. But my personal third round, technical round. Sir, can we ask a question in the shout? Okay, if it can wait till the end, that'll be great. I have reserved some time for questions at the end. But if there's something that's absolutely burning and you need to understand now, you can unmute yourself and speak up. But preferably save it till the end. Okay, I'm going to answer this later. This is a technical question. All right. So having said the fact that my interview specifically started around midnight, 11:45 p.m., it took about an hour plus to actually finish my interview. And you can already imagine how tired I am. This 1 hour was specifically for one technical question. The question was new, it was challenging, it was deep and long. The solution was in different parts. So imagine it's like someone is asking you to build a house. It's not just putting the bricks together. You need to put the electricity in. You need to build the plumbing. You have to take care of so many facets in that one question, right? So that's why it took about an hour. The good thing is, as you're solving, they are going to be watching you. Again, some people will say this is a good thing. Some people will say this is a terrifying thing. But I think it's a good thing because this is an opportunity to show the interviewer your skills as an interviewee, not just in your ability to deliver the right solution, but also demonstrate how you think. One of the biggest piece of advice I can give you during your technical interview is speak as you think. Don't think quietly. This is a great opportunity to demonstrate to the interviewer what you are thinking, how you are creating steps logically in your mind and tackling them individually. The second reason why this is a great thing to do, that's talking out loud while you are writing your answer on paper, is the fact that the interviewers will want to help you. They know that you are just a college hire, a potential college hire, and they will want to help you. They'll give you hints. They'll guide you on the right track if you're talking about a strategy that's slightly off, slightly irrelevant. They're very happy to help. They're very cooperative. Do not think that if an interviewer gives you a tip or a little bit of advice that you're doing badly. It is well known that not all students are going to get perfect answers. They are giving you tips to see how you handle that new piece of information or that new piece of advice. How do you think on your feet? How do you incorporate new perspectives as you're thinking on an existing solution? That's a very important skill to have and something the interviewers definitely look for. So keep your composure, keep your calm. Tips will come in. Make sure you listen to those tips. The interviewers will never give useless tips. So yeah, I'm not going to get specific about my actual third round. I will share this document if you're interested, but I'll move on to the fourth round. The fourth round was a mix of technical interview and personality interview. This was the next day around 8 a.m. So in this round, they asked me, there was one interviewer, he asked me a technical question and then broke me psychologically about it. What do I mean by that? He asked me questions in a way that was a little aggressive, interrupting me half the time, forcing me to think that my solutions don't work well, when in fact it was the right solution. The technical question itself wasn't the most important thing here. Of course, not being able to answer that technical question would have almost certainly disqualified me. So I was able to answer that question at the end of it. But in the procedure, my interviewer was drilling me and interrupting me and seeing how I handle that stress, and also asking me a few design and system related questions. I'm not getting to the specific question again, but do be aware that almost certainly in one of your rounds, one of your interviews, you will have some stress rounds. The interviewers are not only looking to see whether you are technically capable, but also whether your personality is a good fit into their company and into their culture. In a lot of interview experiences online, you'll see for Google specific interviews, they will test your Googliness. You can actually Google or Bing that term, Googliness. That's just a fancy way of Google interviewers to say, hey, we want to see if you fit into our culture. We want to see if you think like how a Googler should think. And I think that's a great sentence. We test your Googliness. Um, you will almost certainly have one personality interview. And you may not even realize it. In my case, I didn't realize it was a personality interview until the interview itself was over. So yeah, so that's how my interview experience worked. There were 4 rounds. Round 1 was online, round 2 was a group fly, round 3 was technical, and round 4 was technical plus personality. At the end of it, I thought I'd flunked it because of how stressful my last round was, but it worked out well, and I am here today. So yeah, that was my interview experience. And finally, what ties this all together? Your CV, your curriculum vitae, your resume. Hi, Vibhu. Please speak up. How can I help you? Oh, okay. Is not being from a tech branch and getting into getting same score in the rounds as tech student a plus point for us, or tech branch would be prioritized before us? All right, this is a great question. I can tell you for a fact that Microsoft doesn't distinguish between your branch capabilities. Oh, sorry. If you're an electrical engineer, as an example, no specific preferences here. I'm sorry? Okay, I think someone's unmuted. Anyway, so if you're from a branch like EEE and you're competing against someone from CSE, as long as you know exactly what the CSE okay, as long as you know exactly what the CSE engineer knows, you have no disadvantage compared to him or her from the CSE branch. I'm speaking only on behalf of Microsoft. I don't know about other companies, whether they have a preference for branch A and not branch B. But at least for Microsoft, if you can demonstrate that you know exactly what the CSE engineer knows, if you can show that you've taken some courses online and you have cleared them, you have certificates, you've completed projects that demonstrate your proficiency, that's enough, at least for a Microsoft interview. All right. So what is a good CV? You need to, first of all, keep it clean. Don't overload your CV with information. Don't try to flood your CV with so many facts, so many small little achievements. Like, for example, if in your 7th grade, you were the spelling bee winner, international candidate, whatever, right? That doesn't belong on your technical CV where you're applying for as a software engineer to Microsoft or Amazon or Cisco or Dell or Google, whichever. 7th grade achievements, 10th grade achievements don't really count today. That was 6 years ago. Keep it out. You're trying to keep your CV clean. Give the interviewer the information that they would need to hire you for a job they're looking for today. Your prior achievements they're great for conversation starters. They're great for telling the interviewer in words, in person, about how you have multifaceted interests, but keep your CV clean. And also, consequently, don't expand it over 2 pages. The interviewer has very limited time. He or she is going to be interviewing dozens of candidates. Don't make your CV so big that it becomes a task to flip pages and understand everything about you. Your CV should be 1 or 2 pages long. Keep it concise, keep it clean. And the biggest mistake I see a lot of people making just because they want to fill in content at the last minute is don't pretend to have done something on your CV. This is a big no-no. If you are caught, and you almost certainly will be caught, you're out. They will know as soon as you put something unreal in your CV. Even if it is believable by default, don't pretend on your CV. For example, if I say that I did a project in database security, I implemented a new encryption model. Your friend may have done it. You may have worked with that person as a team project, but if you don't know enough about it, don't pretend to know about it. And consequently, don't include that on your CV. The reason why I say this is interviewers will almost certainly drill you based on the content that you put on your CV. They might ask you about the project itself for you to describe it. They might ask you about some of the challenges you face through it. They might ask you related questions based on that field of expertise that you should have based on the projects you have. For example, if you person A and person B are applying for the same interview, person A is an expert in machine learning and person B is an expert in database security. The interviewer is not going to ask the same set of standard questions to both of them. There will be tailored questions specific to ML or security to each of them. And if the interviewer can make out that you're pretending about something, you're out. So please do not pretend on your CVs. A little bit of visual appeal does help people, interviewers remember your CV, but don't make that the highlight. Don't make the fact that you have a big, fancy, colorful CV all that is memorable about your CV. A little bit of design will go a small extent in making your CV memorable, in the sense, if you're an interviewer and you have a stack of 20 CVs on your desk, you're going to remember the one with a few colors or a little bit of design influence in it. But again, don't make that the primary thing. I'll show you 3 examples. So this was the CV that was generated by my college. Essentially in Manipal, we had to input all our information to a big form, and we had to print a PDF from that. And we just got this standard template. And all of us were forced to use this for our interviews in campus. As you can see, it's a little cluttered. It's very hard to make out information unless you actually start reading text. It's not very organized. The fonts are a little off. There's no spacing between lines. You can make out this is from a template, right? The extracurricular activities headers on one page with the contents on another. Yeah, it's all right. But this was a template and anyone could make this out. In my case, it wasn't a big deal because everyone had this and we had to. But again, when you're making your own CV, if you have that opportunity, do make it yours. Don't follow a standard template from somewhere else, because if the interviewer sees multiple CVs like that, you lose your potential to make yours stand out. And having said that, I'll show you the second one that I made also at the same time. This is what I actually gave to Microsoft after I was accepted from the technical rounds. Later on, they asked me to send my CV to them. And this is what I sent to them later on. It looks different. It has the same content, but it's a little more categorized, a little more organized. And I want to take the time to emphasize a point that I brought up before. The fact that building your profile over time can go a long way. So if you have more achievements, something that you can proudly say to someone who's looking at you from a technical angle. In my case, I published 2 research papers, and I had filed for a patent from the university side. All of these are pretty easy to do. The thing is, it takes time. That's all. It's ridiculously easy. You don't need a super high IQ. You don't need experience in a specific domain. You just need to know that the ability to do so exists, and it'll take a little bit of time to do it, but it's very easy to do it. So do inquire with your professors, your seniors, on what the best way is to file for a patent or publish research papers, but do know it's very much possible and it goes a long way. Take part in competitions. If you win them, make sure you store the certificates. Again, anything that shows your co-curricular proficiency goes a long way in these technical university level interviews. So yeah, so you can see here, I've broken it down. I've sectioned it a little visually, different colors for fonts, and basically what I thought looked good. This was personal. It was not a template that I followed from generating a PDF. Keep that in mind when you're designing yours. And finally, this is the one that I use today. This is a little more technical, specific to my work in Microsoft. But as I've gotten a lot more tips from seniors and faculty members and peers in Microsoft, experienced family members, this is what I've come up with today. And if I were to share my resume with another company, this is the PDF I would send. Do create your social profiles. If you're a researcher, if you like publishing research papers, ORCID is a good place to publicly flaunt your research work. LinkedIn, of course, almost vital in today's environment. And if you're applying technically, your GitHub or GitLab account will be a good way to demonstrate your capabilities to other people. Because again, you need to remember that your CV is only 2 pages long. You can't put everything. So links to other resources in case the interviewer is interested in you will potentially be a better way to flaunt your skills. I've broken this down to sections. Again, I'm not saying this is the format you have to follow. This is just what worked for me. A quick paragraph that introduces who you are, what your interests are, and what you think makes you stand out from the remaining crowd that is also applying for the same position. Call out some of your key achievements, the work that you've done. If the interviewer could only know 4 or 5 things about you, what would you like them to be? And then after that, describe your experience. In my case, because I'm working, I have broken this down into professional experience and education. In your case, as a student, you would be putting this as co-curricular experience or internships, etc. Make sure you don't become too verbose. Keep only the highlights of each of your roles. If you're really working hard, you can do 3 dozen things in each of your roles. Just make the ones that stand out in flow into your resume. Apart from that, I've also highlighted some of my spotlight projects because again, this is a technical CV. I've used this to apply for technical roles, and therefore flaunting some of my projects was important to me. In my case, I've just included some of the projects that I think demonstrate my variety of skills. You can see I have highlighted MATLAB, C++, Python, Java, and Android. So this is just a good way for interviewers to get at a glance what you've done, what you worked on, and if they're really interested, a quick link to show them the exact work you've done, so they know you're not making it up. Call out your contributions, any books or conference proceedings you've published. And of course, a little bit to talk about who you are outside of work. That it's a good way to start a conversation when you're actually face-to-face with the interviewer. And I think these small things will go a long way. So that's what a good CV, in my opinion, would look like, and how you, I'm sure after you see this, you'll understand what the interviewer is looking for. They're not looking for achievements that I've done 6 years ago. They're not looking for how fancy or colorful your CV is. They are looking for the work you've done recently. They are looking for skills that you can contribute to their current role. And they are very much looking to see if you fit their culture. These are my from experience tips on what would make a good CV for you as an engineer. And now I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Please do unmute yourself or type in the chat box. All right, let me see this. Is not being from tech branch and getting the same score in the rounds as tech student a plus point for us, or the tech branch student will be prioritized before us? At least from Microsoft, no, it makes no difference. You will, in fact, you would need to demonstrate actively that you have the exact same knowledge as the CSE or IT engineer. Show that you have a few course certificates under your name. Show that you're able to answer technical questions, and you will find no difference between a CSE engineer and a EEE engineer, or any other branch for that matter. But yes, having said that, the CSE student will almost certainly be able to answer at least basic questions in all branches of computer sciences. The mechanical engineer or electrical engineer, again, examples, non-tech branch engineers may not be able to answer these deeper questions in databases or design philosophies or algorithms, etc. Should we avoid talking about points already given on our CV in the interview? Absolutely not. In the sense, if you have mentioned something in your CV, that is a great opportunity to start a conversation about the work you've done. Your CV is a little teaser preview into the work you've done. It is not by any stretch of the imagination a one-size-fits-all explanation for the interviewer. to know exactly what you've done. Those are great starting points for conversation. The interviewer will almost certainly ask you some questions about them. Use those questions as opportunities to talk more about the work you've done, the challenges you faced, what was your biggest learning from that experience, and what you would do differently. Use those questions as opportunities to talk about yourself and how you would fit into the company's culture. Technical proficiency is almost just as important as a cultural fit. Questions based around your CV are a great way to start those conversations. All right. Does Microsoft conduct off-campus internships? Off-campus internship. I think you're asking if you can apply for internships from outside on-campus interviews. I don't think so. I mean, technically, yes. There is a website called careers.microsoft.com. You can check that on Google or your internet browser, careers.microsoft.com. You can apply, but the odds of you getting a callback are very slim. I wouldn't rely on that. For sure, try it, but don't use that as your sure shot interview, your sure shot entry into a Microsoft internship. But yeah, to answer your question, one word, yes, they do. Okay, I work under Tevim automatons, and I have worked on image processing and ML and Arduino and Raspberry Pi, but I don't have any proof. So, okay, if you have worked under these, then I'm sure you have some projects, or you should have some code or some videos. If you have videos, upload them onto YouTube. You don't need to get 20,000 views on them. That's not the point of uploading onto YouTube. The fact is you have a public source of information that anyone can verify. For example, that's actually a great question. One of my projects, a fully scalable plug and play automation system with remote trigger functionality. Forget what it is. What it is not important, but the fact that this involved a Raspberry Pi, it prompted me to actually create a video about this and upload this onto YouTube so that anyone else who actually sees my CV will actually have a link to that YouTube video where they can learn more about my project. If you have done something hands-on, take a video, upload it on YouTube, include that link on your CV. It goes a long way. If you don't have any, okay, another thing is if you've done projects for your semester credits or as a side project in college, and if a professor knows about your work, it's very easy to get a letter recommendation from this professor about your work. I'll show you an example. Yeah, so it would look like this. This is Manipal's format. It's almost pretty a standard. You'll see I have several projects under my name. It's very easy to just approach one of those professors and say, sir or ma'am, I have done this work. It took 3 months of my time, and here are the results. I think they're pretty great. Could you please take a look? If the professor is interested, likes it, then he or she would be almost willing to give you a letter of recommendation. And in Manipal, it looks like this. Do reach out to your professors to understand what your letters of recommendation would look like. But yeah, if you're asking about proof, these are two ways to get proof: LORs as well as YouTube videos. How to apply for LinkedIn referrals and what. Hey, by the way, I realize it's 7 p.m. I apologize for overshooting the mark by a little bit with questions. Sakshi, should we stop here, or is it okay if
Sir, it's absolutely okay. You can go on with the questions if they're important.
Awesome, thank you. All right, how to apply for LinkedIn referrals and what should we include when posting? All right, great question. I personally not used LinkedIn referrals before. What should we include when posting? I'm sorry, I don't know much about LinkedIn referrals. What I do know is, I will show you my LinkedIn profile if that helps.
Soorya, are there some puzzles also, problem solving a skill related to puzzle?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are they asked to solve some puzzle, different type of puzzle we are having?
Oh yes, absolutely. Not all questions will be demanding you to write code. Some of them will just involve problem solving skills. Microsoft specifically doesn't have that, but absolutely other companies do. You'll be asked to solve out of the box thinking questions. To understand which companies ask those problem-solving questions, I would recommend figuring out which companies you want to apply for, and then read online about different students' interview experiences. For example, I can vouch for Microsoft specifically, but I can't comment about Cisco's or Amazon's interview procedures, whether they ask coding related questions or do they ask problem solving questions or puzzles. Different companies have different interview styles. I would heavily recommend checking on Geeks for Geeks for these interview experiences. In fact, let me take the time to show you what that looks like. Interview preparation. All right. Wait, this is not the right thing. Student placement course, careers, internship. One second. Yeah. So if you search for a Microsoft interview preparation on Geeks for Geeks, you will get a set of questions that are commonly asked. There's also a section for interview experiences. Yeah, this is the one. So this is one random experience that I've opened where they describe exactly what they went through. This helped me a lot to make sure I was expecting the right things from my Microsoft interview. Understanding what the interviewers are looking for typically will go a long way in tweaking your preparation. So to answer your question, sir, about how to talk, how to expect problem solving or puzzles related questions, I would heavily recommend checking on Geeks for Geeks or similar platforms for interview experiences and seeing whether they ask those type of questions in the first place. I hope I answered your question. Yeah,
Yes,
and
thank you.
awesome, thank you. And someone else asked about LinkedIn profiles. This is mine. It's pretty much a bigger resume. I've put in all my experience. Make sure you keep this up to date as you keep working, because it is a hassle to update this at the last minute. As and when you achieve something new, don't hesitate to just dump that information onto LinkedIn. Fill in all the sections, your education, the grades you've achieved, volunteer experience, get endorsements if you can, but don't break your head over this. It helps to show that you are skilled at this, but this isn't going to be what decides whether you get a job or not. Update your projects, test scores, patents and publications. Yeah, this is my LinkedIn profile. I'll share my resume later on. And you can click on any of these hyperlinks to see more about how I've crafted my profile. All right. Next question. So I am from BTech CC first year. How should I prepare from now onwards specifically? Will workshops also account into achievements? All right, I'll answer this in reverse. Will workshops also account into achievements? Absolutely, they will. Again, it goes both ways. If you're organizing a workshop or you're participating in a workshop, both ways help. Preserve the certificates. They will go a long way in demonstrating factually to the interviewers that you do have experience in this field. Having said that, if you are going to talk about this interview experience, if you are going to talk about this workshop experience, make sure you know what the subject's all about. This goes back to the earlier point of don't pretend on your CV. If you're putting something, make sure you know the ins and outs of it. Don't put something just to fill in space, because the interviewers will almost certainly drill you on these topics specifically. How should I prepare from now onward specifically? I recommend going to these resources, right? Yeah. I'd heavily recommend these three. Oops. Cracking the coding interview, Geeks for Geeks to start off with. Start off at the easy level. Don't jump into the hard level things. And as you're coming closer and closer to your interview date, start putting a clock or a timer above your problem solving skills. Interviewbit was pretty good for that, but there are a lot of others. I think Code Chef is one. A lot of people use Leet Code, Algo Expert. There are a lot of fantastic resources, but these are the ones that I used. So yeah, how do you prepare from now onwards specifically? This is one way to do it. Not the only way. This is one good way to start. So an interview or a position for an ML engineer will absolutely need the candidate to code in Python, which is on trend. What about Microsoft? All right. So this is a great question. A machine learning engineer, this position is almost not offered for entry-level university graduates. You need to have some prior experience, or as far as I know, if you want to become an ML engineer straight as an outside hire from outside Microsoft, you need to have at least an MTech. As far as I know, BTech engineers don't get the role of an ML engineer. This will absolutely need the candidate to code in Python, which is on trend. What about Microsoft? Yeah, if for the position of ML engineers, you would want to code in Python. Yeah, but having said that, as far as I'm aware, you can't get into this role without an MTech. I come across the name Microsoft MTA certification very often, but I'm not able to find the opportunities it opens. I'm also here the certification is being removed by 2022. So would it be worth giving the MTA examination, having it on CV? Would it help to get in? Okay. I too have heard about the Microsoft MTA certifications. As a university hire, no. Let me put it this way. Some of my peers had taken the CCNA, that's a Cisco Certified Networking Associate. They're taking the CCNA exams. They didn't, it was a talking point in the sense it demonstrated the fact that you knew your fundamentals about networking. But as a university hire, your certifications are not going to make or break your profile. Having said that, certifications are a great way to demonstrate an initiative. They're a great way to demonstrate your proficiency in fundamentals. So again, as a university hire, if you have a certification, it just shows that you know your basics. So absolutely go for it if you can. It's not about whether it's highly recognized or if it's by Microsoft or Cisco or Google or whichever. The fact that you have taken some certification goes a long way in demonstrating initiative. And that is more important than the brand or whether it expires or not. Having it on the CV, will it help to get in? Absolutely does, but only for those reasons of initiative and demonstrating your capabilities. It's not that, oh, this person's a Microsoft MTA certified person or an Azure fundamentals person or a Cisco CCNA certified person. No, that's not what is going to ensure you get your job offer. As a Java programmer, do we need to know in-depth pointer concept? I'm assuming this question is tailored to Microsoft, and absolutely, yes, you do. Simply because you can't advertise yourself as a Java programmer. In fact, doing so is counterproductive. If you say that you only know language 1, but not anything about language 2, it shows that your skill set is narrow. And that's fine. Having said that, it's okay to not know everything as a university hire. But again, pointers is such a generic concept that is so widely used in the industry that not knowing about it will almost certainly be a detriment to you. This question is very specific to Java and pointers. So I'm giving you a very specific answer. Pointers, absolutely, you need to know them. Memory management and memory allocation is such a fundamental concept in computer sciences that you would absolutely need to know about it, irrespective of your language of choice. Should we provide our technical skills other than the certified ones in CV? Absolutely. I'm assuming when you say certified, you're asking about certificates or certifications. Should you provide your technical skills? Absolutely do. Just be sure that when you include them, you know about it and you can back it up. If someone asks you about a given language or a given skill or a given topic like security fundamentals or machine learning or even C++ versus Python, right? Make sure you know what is on your CV. There should never come a point where someone asks you a direct question about something on your CV and you say, oops, I don't know. That situation should never arise. How to apply Microsoft in electronics side under developing Surface Notebook laptop? I'm sorry, how to apply Microsoft and electronic side under developing Surface notebook, laptop, etc. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Uh, are you asking as a university hire how you can apply to a specific role in Microsoft? If that's what you're asking me, no, you can't. You don't have the liberty of choosing your role as a university hire. You do have this option or this liberty if you're applying from outside university. But interviewers will come from specific teams. They know exactly what teams they're hiring for. And typically you don't have a choice in that matter. They may be gracious enough to give you a preference form to say which fields are you interested in. They may or may not give it to you, but they will try to accommodate you in your field of interest. Having said that, there is no way to, as a university hire, to specifically apply for something like the Surface Notebook. Again, having said that, once you do get into Microsoft, you can apply for an internal transfer. So let's say you crack the Microsoft interview, you get in as, let's say, a Microsoft Teams engineer. After you spend a year or two in Microsoft Teams, you can very much apply through an internal portal to the Surface division. So that's possible. Should we include date of birth on your CV? No, there's no rule saying you have to. No. But some colleges by default put that on your CV. I don't think Manipal did. Did Manipal do that? Yeah, Manipal did that. They put my date of birth, but no, it's not a rule that you have to put your date of birth on your CV. AWS, Oracle, Cisco certification useful for interviews. Absolutely. They are useful. They are great conversation starters. They are great ways to demonstrate your initiative and skill, but they are not guarantees that you will get in. Can BCA students be a part of the internship? Oh, this is a great question. I'm going to generalize this and answer it in the way that it applies to everyone, not just BCA students. Some internships demand students to be from a specific set of branches. This is usually enforced by universities, colleges. So when, oh, hi, Siva, I'll just answer this question, then you can interrupt me before I handle the next question. Yeah, some internships demand students to be from given branches. For example, the college will enforce the rule that mechanical engineers cannot apply to Microsoft. This is a college enforced rule. Sometimes the company themselves tell the college to enforce it, but I'm not going to answer specifically to BCA students or mechanical students or any given branch students. But do check with your college whether you are eligible to apply for the role or company that you're desiring. What programming languages should we learn? If you're learning something from scratch, I'd heavily recommend Java or C++, simply because these two languages are universally accepted as interviewing languages. But don't stop there. Do feel free to take the initiative to learn more, go above and beyond. All right, sir, is that enough for an entry-level person to know one language in depth and some more on basics, added on with the required extra concepts, data structures, etc.? Oh yeah, absolutely. So this actually fits me. I knew two languages in depth. I knew C++ and Python. Yeah, I knew C++ and Python, and I knew a little bit of Java, a little bit of C#, a little bit of MATLAB. But yeah, my strong suits are Python and C++, and that is perfectly enough, because the interviewer is not going to be drilling you on programming language specific constructs, because as you know, languages evolve constantly. If you know C++ from 2014, it's your knowledge is almost certainly outdated. There's so many new things that are coming out in 2020. And to keep your language as your selling point is folly. That's not the right way to go about things. What you should do is use your language skills to demonstrate your proficiency in a given topic. For example, data structure, algorithms, those things don't change. And that's a great addition that you've given. There are many required extra concepts. I wouldn't call them extra, I'd call them fundamental concepts. object-oriented programming, and data structures. There's so many more. This is more important than your language, but both go hand in hand for obvious reasons. Thank you so much for answering all my questions. Nice webinar. I've also sent you a question on LinkedIn. Looking forward to connect with you. Absolutely. Thank you. Vibhu, I hope you found this useful. Again, feel free to reach out to me in case you have any other questions. Manish, how much did pointer matters? It matters as a fundamental data structures concept. Your data structures almost certainly need some form of pointer mechanisms, indirection mechanisms. This is a very technical question. So I'd recommend going through the computer science fundamentals for computer science specific interviews. For example, Microsoft. Could you suggest some good books for data structure and algorithms? Are you looking to practice data structure and algorithms, or are you looking to learn data structures and algorithms? If you're looking to learn, I forgot the name of the authors. I'm trying to remember the name. But anyway, I mean, having said that, both practicing and learning, cracking the coding interview is a great way to start. This introduces a lot of the essential data structures. This is by no means enough. Use this book as a starting point to understand what data structures exist, and go on Google and read more about how it works and try some practice questions specifically with those data structures. There are many other books, but if I had to give you one to start off with, it would almost certainly be Cracking the Coding Interview. Will Microsoft accept R programming? For your online rounds, certainly not. R is not on the list of languages you can code in. But if you demonstrate it as an extra skill, absolutely, that's a great talking point. So yeah, anyone else has any questions? Apologies for overshooting by 19 minutes, but
Hi, Soorya.
yeah, hi.
Yeah, I work for a service-based company. It's almost a 1.5 year.
Okay.
Now I am completely working on the web development side using React.js.
Okay.
If I need to switch from service-based company to product-based company like Microsoft or any, and now should I need to learn all my core CS subjects or concepts? Is it mandatory for a web developer to learn all the core CS subjects to get into company like this?
That's a great question, and the answer, the one-word answer is absolutely yes. The reason being, Microsoft doesn't distinguish between web engineers and backend developers and product engineers. Everyone in Microsoft is an engineer, full stop. And there are certain prerequisites for engineers. One of them almost certainly being data structures, algorithms, databases. Yes, you need to know your fundamentals of computer sciences if you're applying for a product company like Microsoft. Simply because no engineer is always going to be in one domain for the rest of their career in a company like Microsoft. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
how to, oh yeah, Siva, please do speak up.
sir, is it enough to have Python knowledge, or I have to learn C++ or Java too?
Yes, you would want to learn C++ or Java for your first round at least, simply because most companies, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Most companies don't accept Python as a standard language in which you can code in your first round of interviews. When you're applying for companies like Microsoft, they do, wait, does Microsoft accept Python? I don't think so. And when I say they don't accept, I'll explain what I mean. Yeah, in my Microsoft experience, the first 3 questions were to be answered on the CoCubes platform. I'll actually open that website for you so you know what it looks like. Right? So this is a website whose sole job is hosting questions online, and websites like CoCubes accept only a given set of programming languages. Now, think of it as them hosting the compiler and the IDE environment for you. So you need to know whether your company accepts Python, the company of your dreams. If it does, it accept Python in the first few rounds. If it does, then that's sufficient. If it doesn't, then I can almost guarantee that they will accept C++ and Java. So I wouldn't rely on my Python knowledge to get me into all companies that I'm applying for, but I would rely on C++ or Java to get into all the companies that I would dream of. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. How to get a Microsoft internship inside Tamil Nadu? I am sorry, I don't know about Tamil Nadu specifically. I don't have a region-based expertise on where Microsoft interviews or hires. Sorry, I can't answer region-specific questions. Or India. Okay. Again, I am presuming that you are a university hire, or what you're looking to be a university hire. In the sense you are in your first to fourth year right now. So it shouldn't matter as long as Microsoft is coming to your university. If it doesn't, you can always apply on careers.microsoft.com. Again, I'll show you what that looks like. Oops. Yeah, so this is what that website looks like. So there's this explicit section for students and recent graduates. You can apply for the interview, the job of your choice. But yeah, and if you're asking for India specifically, just select jobs from India. Having said this, getting a job offer through careers or Microsoft.com is kind of a long shot, because so many people across the world apply through this portal. But if you're asking a generic question on how you would apply from India, that's how you would do it outside of university calls. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
And this is your offbeat question, nothing related with this. What the things you do to embrace the creativity in your job, or like what the things you do to bring the creativity in the task?
Okay, so if I'm understanding your question right, you're asking what I would do to bring creativity into my daily work. Is that right?
Yeah, that is good. This is a personal question and offbeat question, not
Okay.
related with this.
No problem. That's a great question. Thanks for asking. Creativity is something that you bring in as a personal flavor to distinguish you from your fellow engineers or peers or seniors or whoever. Creativity is something that every individual can use to distinguish themselves. In my case, I work on Microsoft Outlook for Windows. So if any of you have used an email client that works on Outlook, you've probably used some of the code that I work on. Now, if you're specifically asking on what I do to bring creativity, it goes in two aspects. One, the work that I do that is assigned to me by my manager. I find the best ways to communicate. I send out notices through email, and I craft my emails in a way that makes sense to the managers. I don't crowd that with too much information. I make sure I connect with partner teams in a way that they look forward to conversations with me instead of trying to piss them off accidentally. So that's how I would, I mean, I wouldn't call it creativity. It's just a personal flair. The second aspect is involuntary initiatives that you can take up. There are a lot of other V teams or clubs in Microsoft that you can be a part of to voluntarily be a part of bigger initiatives. There are drone flying V teams. There are machine learning V teams. There are dozens, too many to count. So you can join any one of them, and that's a good space to explore more creativity and passion that you choose to do. So yeah, these are the two ways that I would say creativity flows into Microsoft. And that's a big way. Life at Microsoft has never been dull. So there's always space to do something new, something different. And I think that's how I would say creativity flows into my job. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. Let me see some questions in the chat. So I will be graduating in an year. Do you have any interest in recommending newcomers to Microsoft Bangalore branch if you feel I'm worthy working there? Veena, I'm happy to connect with you offline. I can't recommend anyone without knowing them personally. But yeah, I'm happy to make your acquaintance and get to know you a little better. Good evening, sir. I have an interest in joining Microsoft as a system tester. How come I get to it? Also, what are the skills required as being a fresher? I have graduated in BCA. Please guide me. Okay, you want to join Microsoft as a system tester. Okay, this is a deep question. If you're applying for a specific role, there are two ways to do it. One is to ask someone in a team who already works in Microsoft in the team that you're designing for a referral. I'm not a system tester, so I'm the wrong person to ask this specifically. But given that you seem to have an interest in this specific role, two ways to do it. One is from careers.microsoft.com. Two is if you can connect with someone on LinkedIn, or if you have a friend who works in Microsoft in this domain, ask them for a referral. What are the skills required? I'm sorry, I don't know what the skills required are for a system tester. I'm not a system tester myself. So can you kindly provide your Gmail ID for future doubts regarding career in Microsoft? Yeah, absolutely. I will share my CV afterwards. So you can connect with me on this email ID. I'll share this afterwards, if that's all right. So yeah, the things I'll share are my CV, my interview experience, and my slide deck. Yeah. Anyone else has any other questions? I'm available. I'm so sorry for overshooting the time, but I'm available if anyone else wants to ask any other questions.
Hey, Soorya, that was an amazing and insightful session that we had with you. I guess there are no more questions that we would want answers to from the audience, right? So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And thank you, Soorya, for hosting this great and insightful session for our people. And it was great to have you here. And I think that I'm sure that our audience has been enriched with your valuable thoughts. So guys, I hope that you all had a great evening with Mr. Soorya, and hope to see you in the next webinar. Stay safe and good night.
Yeah.
That's all for today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Hope you
for
enjoyed.
joining us.
Yeah. Thank you, Sakshi, for having me.
Thank you so much, Soorya.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.